This episode has been brought to you by JustNForm.com. If you're tired of being censored, tired of having your data stolen and sold, go to JustNForm.com, a social media site where all voices are welcome.
So we get to all pretend to be surprised again, everybody, because lo and behold, Kamala Harris and Tulsi Gabbard announced their respective presidential bids on the same night. So clearly, because the past has showed us that media treats all candidates equally, especially the front-running candidates, right? Clearly, they're going to get the same opportunities presented to them by the media, which is precisely why CNN gave Kamala Harris her own fucking private town hall meeting. What the hell? Like, Kamala Harris is getting her own personal town hall. And to make matters even worse, she's getting it in Iowa. Why? Well, because let's be very clear about something. Like, if we're talking about just pure strategy here, there's nobody who runs table on the Midwest and the Rust Belt in that general area better than Bernie Sanders. They're not naive to this. In case you don't know, Iowa is the very first place that people vote. The Iowa caucuses, which were the center of much conversation, and a lot of you don't remember why. So let me refresh your memory. Remember when everyone thought that Bernie Sanders had no chance whatsoever to take any type of victory in the Iowa caucus? Remember that. I think plenty of you who have been paying attention probably do remember that. Here's what actually happened, though. Bernie Sanders ends up not only doing well, but he actually, according to the delegate count, the unpledged delegates, he won. He was closing, and then he won, and people were like, what? What just happened? And that was going to be the news story going forward. However, this is when many of us, for the very first time, and as early as they've ever been presented, many of us were faced with the reality of superdelegates. I'm sure you all know about those. They have literally been a thorn on our side for the last 3 to 4 years. But it took the invocation of superdelegates to beat for Hillary Clinton, of all people, who had more name recognition than almost any presidential candidate in the last 3 decades. It took that for Hillary Clinton to win. And as far as unpledged delegates are concerned, she actually didn't win. Because I'm sure a lot of you were watching whenever we were looking at exit polling, and it was like, holy crap, Bernie Sanders won Iowa. You turned your head away for a second, you turned back to look at the screen, and then out of nowhere, it said Hillary Clinton had won. And they're like, oh, this just in. The Iowa superdelegates have pledged their votes to Hillary Clinton. And you're like, oh, what the hell happened? So, of course, CNN is more than aware of this. But I'm sure it's just a coincidence. I'm sure CNN has no horse in the race. And I'm sure that if we look up Kamala Harris's FEC filings, we won't see a link from Warner Media to CNN to Kamala Harris. I'm sure we won't find that, except for when I looked up the FEC filings, I looked up Warner Media, and I found out they own CNN. And they're also Kamala Harris's #1 donor. We're starting already. It's already starting. Tulsi Gabbard and Kamala Harris announced the exact same night. What? And then Tulsi Gabbard actually, surprisingly enough, gave CNN the exclusive on her announcement, and they repay her by promptly giving Kamala Harris a distinct advantage in Iowa. Well, I will say this. If we're talking about the reality of electoral politics, Kamala's going to need all the help she can get. And it's even weirder because if you look at the CNN article that announces that Kamala Harris is going to get the town hall in Iowa, they start laying out a path for her to win. They don't lay out a path for Bernie Sanders. They don't lay out a path for Tulsi Gabbard. They don't even lay out a path for Warren or Kirsten Gillibrand or Ojeda or Yang. They just exclusively lay out a path for Kamala Harris, and it's almost exclusively based off of the idea that she can win the black vote in the South and hopefully take Nevada and then hopefully win her state of California, which nobody in their right mind at this point in time believes she's going to win legitimately. The Republicans hate her. Any progressive that would have voted for Bernie Sanders then definitely is going to vote for her now, and she has to deal with other people voting for Tulsi Gabbard, who I do believe has a huge following in California, because clearly that is her neighboring state and the state she visits the most outside of Hawaii. So they know that they are at a disadvantage with Kamala Harris having to face the reality and her skeletons in California sooner than Hillary Clinton had to. She could be eliminated early. So why are they doing this? To make sure that Kamala Harris has her face in front of people as a black woman using pure identity politics before anyone else has an opportunity to try and take an early advantage over her. Because let's be clear, I said it over and over again. It doesn't matter if you like Bernie Sanders. It doesn't matter if you love Bernie Sanders. When he announces, it is going to be an event. It is going to be an event. It is going to be met with roaring applause. We are probably going to not see any other announcement as exciting for this for the next century. I'm not exaggerating. You can say what you want to about Bernie, but the man is the most popular politician in the country, and there are reasons for that. And so to ignore what that means for electoral politics is simply naive. Now, this is also, if you want to know whether or not mainstream media companies will tip the scale in one way or another for one particular candidate based off of who is paying them. Remember whenever Bernie Sanders announced, he was in his backyard, it was really quaint, he was in Vermont, in Burlington, had his family, his children and grandchildren there, and a few news companies showed up, mostly local media. It wasn't widely televised. But that actually wasn't the original plan. Ed Schultz, may he rest in peace, one of the most honorable, upstanding journalists who really resembles evolution incarnate. A man who went from being conservative to being a hardcore truth-telling progressive who got to take back control of his own career, got to tell us of the reality of what took place during the announcement of Bernie Sanders. He was there. Ed Schultz knew a lot about Bernie because even though I was young when Bernie started taking up his mantle as one of the most progressive senators in Congress or in the Senate, Ed Schultz was there for the entire thing. Ed Schultz, remember how he had fought back against the narrative in Iraq. Ed Schultz remembered when Bernie Sanders was predicting stock market crashes and things like that. And he had remembered that for the most part, when it came to domestic issues, there was none at the time better than Bernie Sanders. We all had Elizabeth Warren thrown in our face for quite some time. However, it was really Bernie Sanders that was fighting for domestic policy to the degree that we thought Elizabeth Warren had been doing it, but it turned out she was just wagging her finger and never really wanted any substantive change, but that's neither here nor there. So Ed Schultz told us the truth. He said that when he went to cover the campaign announcement for Bernie Sanders, MSNBC called him and told him not to cover it. So, of course, we know that one person, one candidate, will get a considerable amount of coverage based off of who's invested in their success. And if you are a threat to that investor, if you are a threat to that institution or that machine, they will make sure to tip the scales against you. So once again, people, Bernie Sanders is imperfect. Tulsi Gabbard is imperfect. But this should let you know who your apples. They say don't put all your apples in one basket, but these are the baskets that you should be putting them in. Because when you have a candidate as popular as Bernie Sanders, another candidate that is as popular amongst progressives, they tried to release a poll the other day. So these are the definitive front runners. They tried to list Sherrod Brown, who I don't even know who that guy is, to be totally honest with you. I've seen his name floated around, but they had him on a poll of like 9 or 10 candidates and didn't even list Tulsi Gabbard, and nobody knows who Sherrod Brown is. They listed Cory Booker, he hadn't even announced, but they didn't list Tulsi Gabbard. They tried to say that Bernie Sanders was 6th in the running behind Joe Biden, behind Kirsten Gillibrand, behind Kamala Harris, behind, like, what? Really? So you have admitted, you've been forced to admit, CNN, MSNBC, and other outlets, that Bernie Sanders is indeed the most popular candidate in the country. He was the only person who could even think to go head to head with the machine that is the Clinton cabal and the Clinton mafia and the Clinton the Clinton Foundation machine. He was the only one that could go head to head and even come close to victory. And you try and convince us that he is in 6th for the running for popularity for the presidential vote, and he's the only one that can definitively beat Trump according to every poll. You try to convince us that the woman who gained a lot of her popularity from backing and being surrounded by the most popular candidate in the country, that she is not even in the running, but Sherrod Brown is. Yeah, because we all believe that, right? We all believe that. If you think that the media is not going to tip the scales for the rest of this election, you were wrong. But these things give us clues. I believe it was FDR, and I want to thank one of my followers for giving me this quote, because it's brilliant, but I believe it was FDR who said it best. I ask of you to judge me by my enemies. If the establishment considers a politician an enemy, then it's probably because they're on your side. I love to hear your thoughts about this. Make sure you like the video, share it, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching that segment of Mi Casa es Su Casa. You can donate to our Patreon and keep helping the network grow by clicking on the link in the description below. And also, make sure you join us at JustNForm.com. And finally, make sure you subscribe to us on Roku and be part of the very first independent news network on Roku TV. But more than anything else, always remember, find your balance. Peace.